Okay, welcome back to 3P Studios. My name is Andrew Quinonez, and we are in downtown Pomona Arts Colony. Today in studio, you have special guest, Mr. Joseph McCullen.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you for being here. And Mr. Dylan. Hi, Dylan.
What's up?
All right, so check it out. This is a podcast that we're going to be talking about a few things that's going on within our community and here in the city of Pomona and surrounding valley. So take it away, Dylan.
Honestly,
what's on your mind?
The main problem, the drug use, the parks, and they're both really tied, like issues that are really tied in. There's homeless on drugs at the parks, and we just want to eliminate that issue.
Right. I heard a quote a long time ago saying that it takes a community. It takes a community. Now, for those who are just listening in or watching, you have two all-stars here sitting at the table with you. We got two generations of people right here. Of course, we got Joseph and my generation. What year were you born, Joseph?
83, man.
All
Last
right.
time the Raiders won the Super Bowl.
Damn, it's been that long, huh? Shoot. And I'm 77, so we got the 70s, the 80s, and
2008.
In 2008, man. So three decades of experience here. And of course, Joseph and I have been community stakeholders, community leaders, people that have been spending a lot of time throughout the last almost 2 decades, I think we've known each other, putting in time and effort to improving the landscape of our community, Pomona. And you are the next generation, Dylan. You're in high school right now, and you participate in some great activities. You're mentored by some great people within our community in hopes that we could pass the baton on to you. Because, of course, Joseph and I are getting older, and it takes multiple generations to address issues that are in our community. Now, Joseph, why don't you tell us a little bit about your program and how we got Dylan in as we're working with young people to make an impact within our community?
Oh, I appreciate you giving me that space. So really, our intent is to provide public health education, life skills, and services for the entire community. However, the way that we were able to connect with young leaders like Dylan is just providing positive alternative activities, and that equates to leadership, skill development, community immersion, and impact projects, and also activism. And I know that Dylan is very active statewide on his efforts to improve his own immediate community and kind of establish a legacy so that others can walk alongside him and in his trail so that we can get a lot more impact done.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's what we strive to do. So.
It's kind of cool. Like I said, Dylan's got the double whammy. In one sense, I've been working with him for the last couple of years on the focus on parks and green spaces and community gardens and how that impacts our lifestyles. And your program has largely worked with him on substance abuse issues and those type of impacts that they have within our young people in our community, right?
Correct. And whether it's from Project Sticker Shock, where we're going into local alcohol retailers, or it's during Red Ribbon Week, where we're kind of mobilizing the downtown community to get them on board with some of these efforts, has been highly immersed in that. And so if it wasn't for those authentic voices, the community wouldn't really know who to roll with, basically. And so we want the youth to be at the forefront of that. And Dylan's a prime example.
All right. So, Dylan, tell us a little bit about your experience doing these programs and this educational journey for you.
I mean, my experience has been a very enjoyable one. Enjoyed everything I've done and all the work I've done with both of you guys. I've been very inspired, especially from this one quote that's like, the youth isn't the future, it's now. Yeah. I heard that at the conference, at the ACT conference.
Right.
And it really changed my perspective in the sense that our voice has more power than we really think it has. Mm-hmm. And that's just been like a theme overall throughout this whole time. And it's taken me that long to realize that.
Right.
Because, I mean, if we got more youth involved, we would have more done,
Yes. It makes me think about I was a youngster and I had a mentor and took me to those types of conferences. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the future. One of the exercises they did at the keynote at lunch is said, everyone, I want you guys to lift up your hands and put your 2 fingers in front of you. Okay. And so we all did that. Okay. Everyone do what I do. And everyone started hitting 1 finger against 1 finger. Okay. Now it's 2 fingers against 2 fingers. And then 3 fingers against 3 fingers and 4 fingers. And
so
finally, you got the whole conference clapping, and you could feel the power. And it all came, again, it's just one person making a little noise. And then you jump another person on another. And we make an impact when we team up together as a community with a single focus to raise the roof, right?
Yeah.
Sure. Each one teach one.
Each one teach one. Absolutely. So Joseph, Dylan and I were able to go to All Children Thrive California conference in Sacramento to participate in some civic engagement. Right. And so it was real fun taking two of our Pomona youngsters up there with us and to do some training, to meet other people, to get inspired. Networking, to see our capital, and to have new experiences that I really hope plant a seed within Dylan's heart and mind so that he grows older, that he could continue to make an impact, perhaps like we have over the years.
Absolutely, and that's really where it's at, Dylan, like going straight to the source, Capitol Hill type situation, and letting the policymakers that really could press the button know this is where you want that direction to go. Where do you want the impact to be? And I highly encourage you to continue along with that, because if you look at the way status quo is right about now, it's a lot of older folks, even some older than myself and Andy, and we need more youth representation in those offices, in those arenas, so that we can get a lot more done. And I totally agree with you with increasing and amplifying the youth voice.
Yeah. And I think I'd like to say that we should, I guess, do more outreach in order to get more people involved, I mean, the problem is most people, they either join when they're like older, like Andy would say, or another problem is that they just don't stick around, especially males.
Right. And so this is one of the conversations that Dylan and I have been involved with some other people in our group. How do we get young people to get on board and to stay the course? Because, in this changing world, there are so many parties that are fighting for our attention, right? And again, it's a little bit different for you and I. Maybe we had sports, or there was very few activities, and our parents before us even less. But now this generation can do 100 things after school.
Just overstimulated.
Overstimulated, Yeah. So and so that's a question that I'm glad that's on your mind, because as you grow and develop, I'm hoping that again there'll be a part of you that will give back and mentor other young people as you grow older like us. And if you could start asking that question now, how do I get young people involved to make an impact within their community on a consistent basis?
And what it comes down to, in my perspective, is consistency, authenticity, and dynamic staff, dynamic leaders, and those that can be present and provide that model at the same time for a long term. And the more that youth can observe that consistency, I think the more that you can retain them. All I can do is just be present for young leaders like Dylan to say, I want to share every piece of my knowledge with you, and hopefully that grows exponentially. We need folks that are willing to do that, and especially males. I agree with you.
Got to step up. So, Dylan, what are some of the things, the takeaways that you've had over the years of mentorship between either Joseph and myself or any other mentors? Because, again, I met you when you were a freshman, and I think it was Joseph that might have introduced you, that brought you here as a part of his group. So we've grown a couple years together.
Yeah.
So, kind of, looking, zooming, pulling out, what are some of the takeaways for you doing this type of work?
All right, looking like 2020 vision, looking like retrospective, I think one of the main takeaways was like that things take time, of course, especially with our project over here. Yeah, with the ACT project, things take time. It's like they say, Rome wasn't built in a day. So, and I think that's also one of the things that could discourage other people to not want to participate in these type of projects, because people want things fast,
right?
Especially nowadays with social media and just instant gratification, and people just want it now, and they want to see change now. So that's one of my takeaways, and that's why I think we should maybe, I guess, market the thing differently.
Oh yeah, it's all about marketing, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you, Dylan. And specific, measurable goals is really what we want to get to. And if they have their own, if the youth have a parameter that we need to fit into, then that's what we need to address, because that's the only way is to do it authentically, is to meet them where they're at. And if that's the time frame that they're working upon, we're there.
One of the things that I think was successful for me as I was growing older was when being employed, having like an annual review or sometimes a quarterly review to sit down with my employer and having a healthy conversation on what I'm doing well in and where I need work in. But it was like a benchmark, right? Mm-hmm. And it was good to keep me going to that next benchmark. Okay, you know, and so do you think that would be important, as I'm hearing you say, you know, for our work with young people, having these measurable benchmarks where they feel they've accomplished something in order to go to that next benchmark?
Absolutely. I feel like that's like setting it in the sense of like a video game where like each thing is like a little level.
Oh, yeah.
And until you hit the final boss, which would be the final project. So
awesome. And so as you recall, what are some of the benchmarks over the last course of the couple years that you remember going through with our programs?
With the programs, with your program and specifically, I'd say the first benchmark was actually going out into the parks, taking pictures back in like the beginning of 2023. And then with Joseph's program, PYPC, and prototypes, I'd say one of the benchmarks, obviously, the two main benchmarks are the Red Ribbon Week, where downtown goes red, and then also the Project Sticker Shop, which is one of the bigger benchmarks in my opinion. I really enjoy that event too. And then back to the ACT, I'd say the conference was one of the bigger like levels and that we've hit and goals.
Now tell me, would you like to do something like that on an annual basis?
Of course, yeah. We keep going and just do more as a community.
I love that. Was something that kept me inspired for all the years I've done the work, is going to like annual conferences and meeting people just like me that are also working towards goals within their community. I love that feeling. And you know, Joseph, I really wish, if I had my magic wand, I wish that Pomona, some people like you and me, and perhaps a couple of other stakeholders in a committee, that we would hold like an annual youth leadership conference here in our region of the world, because I think it would just be very impactful. But a lot of work, though.
It's a lot of work, but, you know, there's that ROI, that return on investment, and that's the flourishing of our next generations. And I think with the underlying planning recently with the Conference of Collaboratives, I think that might be a possibility for an offshoot, is to say one of those cycles needs to be an offering for the youth conference.
Right.
And we have the capacity to do so. We have the youth that are outstanding. We need to get that put into place. And we would love for speakers like Dylan and his peers to come out and be the face of that, because that's how you get it to grow. And each year the recognition continues to play on and play on.
Right. So we put that in the ether.
Oh, yeah, it's going to happen.
Conference.
Like an annual, imagine that, an annual youth conference here in Pomona. Not just, of course, it would be the whole Pomona Valley. So we could get people in different schools, anything from Damien to St. Lucy's to, of course, our schools here in Pomona. But I think that would be a wonderful idea. And I can even imagine, now I belong to a Rotary Club and an Optimist Club. So I could even imagine our service clubs playing a role, and of course our legislators playing a role. So I'm sure we could get it funded. And again, with the right team leadership, we can offer something to this high school generation, this transitional youth generation that can be impactful for years, right?
For sure.
Now that you mentioned that, I was thinking it could be hosted at the Fairplex, at the same place that the Luncheon was hosted at.
Yes. And
also we could get not just like regular other organizations, but we could also get the high school clubs involved into
that. That's right. And to think, again, I was telling Joseph before we started, you know, I had years of working with gang-involved youth on probation. And now that I'm working with young people that, like you, Dylan, that are on the right track, it's just really amazing how busy students are in this generation, or active students at least. You know, you have quite a few things going on in your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the other things that you do within your weekly routine?
Well, for starters, I mean, I obviously have school, taking 4 APs right now, and then 1 honor class, and then my choir class, which requires us to do concerts here and there. You know, we're going to be at the Fox Theater next month.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
And also, one of my hobbies is just going to the gym frequently every week. So it's stay fit. It keeps my mind active and fit, you know. And then also, I'm the vice president of the CSF club at my school, and I'm an active member at the NHS club at my school. So,
all right,
that's awesome.
And you think that if we were to be able to reach out to all the clubs that within the Pomona Unified School District and beyond, that we would get some good participation from those groups to help us with this kind of project?
Of course, I know there's people in, I guess, other schools as well that are like willing to be a part of the project, you know, and the community.
Well, I definitely think as stakeholders and now adults within our community, Joseph and I are going to go to the table and share maybe some of this information, this will to get something going here in Pomona, huh?
Yeah, that's the investment right there.
Yeah, man. All right. So now let's talk a little bit more again about some of the things you're doing with prototypes. Now, I was listening to a little bit about Project Sticker Shock.
Yeah.
Tell me about Project Sticker Shock, its goals and its impact within our community of Pomona.
So our goal is to reduce the amount of alcohol given to the youth during the Super Bowl weekend, because Super Bowl weekend statistically is the weekend where alcohol is handed most over to the youth. And the impact we've had, I mean, we've had positive reception. The store owners love us. They love us going in and putting in our stickers and everything. And so I think we've been doing a good job these past couple of years.
Yeah. Now I'm going to play a little bit of devil's advocate, only because my upbringing as a youth growing up here in Pomona was a little bit different than yours.
Yeah.
And of course, now I'm an adult and I have children, so I see things a little bit differently. But I got to tell you, a part of me, like I said, I was a high school student that went to ditch parties and parties on the weekend where somebody's parent probably bought us a keg and we spent, you know, $2 to $5 on a red cup. And so in high school, I want to say just almost about every weekend I went to some kind of party, drinking and living that, I guess, type of lifestyle in high school. Now, for me, it was fun. I enjoyed it. And a part of me, like, we watch these movies about American culture, and whether it be like American Pie or something like that. And it's funny how, well, not funny, but interesting how alcohol is so tied into our culture and our gatherings. And again, that impact, whether it be, again, there was some times where I enjoyed myself and there was some times where people got jumped or someone got hurt. So that was never cool, of course, you know, being at a party where it's going to get shot up because of people being drunk and jealous and violent. But again, I guess what I'm trying to say is how do we change the mindset of an American? You know what I mean? How do we change that mindset to be a little healthier? How do we encourage, like I said, our youngsters, you know, just wait. You know, one day you're going to be an adult and you'll have your time to go out and drink and do those things if you like. But as a teenager, let's focus on other things. What do you think, Joseph?
For me, it's really, like you said, the key word is culture.
Culture.
When we're striving to create a culture of health versus a culture of destruction, a culture of investment into youth rather than neglect, that's how we start to raise the consciousness of the whole community and society in turn. What happens in America is, oh, that's just a passage. That's just a rite of growth, right? We just expect people to go through those ups and downs when they're in high school. But when we think about it, putting emphasis on education, putting emphasis on sustainability, right? It's not sustainable to have youth exposed to violence, like you said, overdose, addiction, increased tolerance of these types of behaviors, because that's when we start to dumb ourselves down as a society. And so we should only want the best of the best for those that we gave our life to and we are supervising and we care about. That way, in turn, society is on a positive cycle rather than on a degenerative cycle.
Yes.
And so that's how I look at it, and that's what we strive for in the field of public health. It's just to prevent negative behaviors and to establish protective factors.
And I want to kind of hone in on something. It's not changing culture, but improving it. I kind of like that. You know, we're improving our culture by thinking healthier, right? I think about Mexicans in particular and the increase of obesity and diabetes because of maybe they start drinking Cokes at a young age and having pan dulce and things of that nature. Now, it's been a part of that culture for some time. And the health effects of that culture, you can see it when you have children that are overweight and diabetes already. Yeah. So we don't want to change culture. We don't want to have people come together and to enjoy food and family, but we want to improve culture by looking at the aspects of health in particular, right? And making healthy choices for our body so that we feel better and perform better within our families. Does that make sense? Or
Absolutely. I always put it like this to our students when we're doing life skills training. I say, if you go in the grocery store and they say that the lettuce has got E. coli in it, are you going to eat the lettuce? They immediately say, no, I'm not. So when we educate them on things like nicotine, alcohol, cannabis, opioids, and say, if this is detrimental to you as if E. coli would be, then what's the difference, right? You would say no to that, then at least give yourself the best chance in your development so that you're not establishing those behaviors throughout life, and then we start to see those outcomes like negative health aspects.
right. And you said a little bit of, it's important for marketing this new generation. I see this almost as a tagline. You had said something. I wish I could just rewind you just a minute. And you said something about our health, the best choice for our health or
Sure. I mean, marketing, you brought up marketing. Marketing is behavior change. How do you get somebody to buy a product? You have to market it in a way that's going to change the way they act.
Right.
And so when we're marketing public health, we're putting stickers on our packaging. We're putting social media posts out there. We're doing podcasts. That's what we're really trying to spread is a message. And hopefully they establish positive behaviors, and then it becomes ingrained in their cultures.
Routine.
That's right.
Absolutely. Culture of success.
Yeah.
So, as we put this podcast in the ether, we're hoping maybe some parents and young people will tune in and gravitate to this message. How important it is that we give this next generation a healthy start. And a healthy start seems to start with having the right information. If you got bad information, then you're more than likely going to make bad choices. But if you got good information, you got the facts, then all of us can make a decision based on those facts, right?
Yeah.
All right. So, Dylan, I'm gonna guess, unlike me when I was your age, out there partying, I'm gonna guess you don't drink or do those type of things in your life, right?
No.
All right. So, how do you is there any other peer pressure within your life, and if so, how do you resist it? I mean, what do you do in comparison to maybe some other youngsters out there?
I mean, there's no peer pressure because I don't surround myself with people like that,
Okay, stop there. Whoever's listening, that's a key point. It depends on who you surround yourself with, right? That will have the greatest impact within your life, who you surround yourself. So you don't surround yourself with people that make those type of choices.
No, it's because like they say, the 5 average people you surround yourself with are who you become, You surround yourself with poor people, you'll be poor. You surround yourself with millionaires, you'll be a millionaire. So
Yes. One time I got in trouble and a sheriff came to my house to talk to me and give me a lecture with my parents. I was probably about 17, 18 years old, maybe 16. And they said, if you walk like a duck and you sound like a duck or a skunk or whatever, but you're So basically, he's telling me if you walk like a gang member, talk like a gang member, and look like a gang member, that must mean you're a gang member, So you put yourself in those positions, and you surround yourself with those type of, then that's who you become, right?
Yeah.
In a sense.
But I also think an important part of like developing is of people and like who they become are role models. So like myself, I'm very grateful to have 2 amazing role models like you guys to put me on the right path in life. Yeah. But I don't think most youth have that in their life, proper
Yes.
role models that keep them in check and tell them the right place.
Right. So how do I'm going to guess you made a choice to connect yourself with positive after-school activities, and that's why we're a part of your life.
Yeah.
But for those youngsters that may not know, how does a youngster that may not know get connected with good role models and opportunities?
I'd say it's just looking outside of their school. I found out about your program through Joseph, who connected me to you. So it's just knowing people, and I'd say that's also like it could be a problem where people they don't know. And it's just harder for them to know about our programs. Mm-hmm. So I'd say we could fix that by, like we said before, marketing back to the youth,
Wonderful.
To interest them and bring them in. And then one program takes them to another program.
Right.
Another program takes them to another.
Yeah, like one of the steps lead them to the top floor.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
It's like everything here in the city, especially in Pomona, everything's like interconnected. One program's connected with the other.
Yes.
Through people or through members being part of other councils and everything. So,
Now I'm curious. I have 2 little boys that are 7 and 9, so I haven't experienced that teenagehood yet within my life. But I'm curious, how do kids, I guess, party these days? Again, for our generation, it was going to some backyard party that had a keg and a DJ. You remember those days, right?
Absolutely.
The house parties.
Backyard boogie
House parties.
Yeah.
And again, there was alcohol and marijuana, but
Yeah.
I understand that these days it's a little bit different. There are access to different types of substances, and like,
Sure.
I mean, how is it these days? I mean, what do you know about?
I mean, I don't know
that type
too
of
much, but I'd say that there's not many parties, or at least in the high school scene. I'd say that's more in the college scene.
Yes.
And
maybe that's a good contribution for the work that you have done as a group in Prototypes with the Project Sticker Shock. For all the years you've been doing it, we hope that has had an impact on backyard parties and reduce the alcohol consumption overall within our community.
I think Dylan's right, and unfortunately, the flip side of that is we're looking at different substances now, and so maybe alcohol use, tobacco use, nicotine use is at a certain point. You know, we're keeping it at bay, but now we're starting to see substances like opioids, and so what we have observed is isolation use, where youth are using within their bedroom. They're self-medicating with an opiate or maybe a stimulant that is not prescribed to them. They might have got it from a colleague or a peer. And this is where we see slogans like, don't use alone, and, you know, Narcan, have Narcan in the home, naloxone in the home, just in case, you know, there is that experimental use and youth are, you know, doing it to alleviate some kind of an issue, and all it takes is, you know, a substance that's the tip of a pencil to affect the rest of their life. So it might have adjusted a little bit as far as what the trends look like with youth, but definitely the work is still there, because we want, like we were discussing earlier, to establish that culture of you are worth it. You know, you do have things to look at on the bright side of life, rather than dabble in something that could change you forever or worse.
You know, I think it's interesting because it seems, again, what you're saying, that people are doing things more in environments where they're alone. Again, growing up within our era and the eras before, we as teenagers, we never drank alone or smoked weed alone. It was always with at least two people. We talk to each other and kind of commiserate and whatever, but it was never something that we ever did by ourselves. And so you're telling me that there's a trend these days, and perhaps because these youngsters went through like the COVID thing and the mask and the isolation, that more and more young people are experimenting in isolation, doing things alone.
yeah, I'd say the pandemic obviously impacted that. I mean, after that pandemic, most people became like antisocial. And so there's not really much gatherings, you know, especially during high school.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say that's the biggest contributing factor to isolation, to the use of drugs and isolation. So
A number of months ago, I had a podcast here, and we invited a young woman. I think she was about 13 years old, 14 years old, and she had shared a story about her older sister that was maybe about 2 or 3 years older, high school student, cheerleader, was dating a guy that wasn't on the right track, so had some kind of negative influence. Well, this young cheerleader went to a little kickback, and somebody rolled up a joint and put, I guess, fentanyl in that joint. And she's not, from what I understood, she was not someone that drank and smoked. It was more cheerleading, and those type of things were more her thing. But, you know, the peer pressure, a joint is going around, and she took a hit, unknowing there was some substance within that joint. And she had, I don't know, a heart attack or something. And there was no Narcan. And the people that were with her were scared because they may be held accountable. So they didn't do anything about it. She basically died. I mean, this beautiful young cheerleader with so much potential, in life, did something that took her life. And again, it's not someone that has substance abuse problems, or live that type of lifestyle, just at a kickback.
Yeah.
So it seems like certainly like in these times, some young people have more to risk because of the drugs that are now out there that people are using. Does that make sense? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard before of other things where like people are just experimenting their first time and they just end up dying, you know?
yeah.
It's very sad, the situation with I'd say, very aggressive drugs like fentanyl, you know? And obviously me and Joseph, we've discussed this before, you know, how it just takes a little bit, you know, to take someone's life.
Yeah. That's crazy, huh? Yeah. The pencil is the size of a pencil tip can take somebody's life, huh?
Right, and we have to emphasize, and that's where that whole culture of education and investment into self and investment in community comes into play, is because ultimately it's not worth the risk, you know? And there's all kinds of other things out there that you can release endorphins with. You can release the dopamine in your brain to have those good feelings, but you have to unlock it by getting involved in positive alternative activity, getting involved in community activism. That's a rush right there.
Yeah.
Get active, and in that way you ain't got to rely on, you know, a handful of substances. There's not that many, you know, to dabble into, but when you're talking about risk, it's not worth it socially
right.
or recreationally or to self-medicate.
Right. The risk outweighs the benefit of the reward.
Yeah.
The risk outweighs the benefit of the reward. All right. So now as we kind of move on with the subjects, what else do you think that you're going to take away from your experience with us? Again, we talked a little bit about the conferences and the networking and what you've learned. We've talked about some of the work that you guys have been doing, reducing substance abuse within Pomona. What is something else that has impacted you as you've been growing here in Pomona?
As a whole, I'd say the community around me has really impacted me. I mean, I don't really live like in a rich neighborhood, so I've been exposed to many types of different things, of seeing things happening around my neighborhood, you know, car crashes, people getting shot up and everything. But yeah, I'd say this is what they call the culture of our city. Although it's not really a positive one, I'd say like I'd really like to change it, you know. So, yeah, there's many changes I'd want to do with the things I've seen and grown up around, and yeah.
And can you share any of the vision that you may have for a possible change in Pomona? Now, before you answer that question, I don't know how long you and I have known you, Joseph. What do you think? It's been 20 years or?
Man, it's at least 10 years.
Yeah, I know at least 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. When did you start working here in Pomona?
I've been working in Pomona since 2004, 2005.
Okay, yeah. So it has been 20 years since we've been running the same circles, right?
Yeah.
So when I started my work, when I was your age, again, I was banging and slanging and mad at the world. I started doing my work in Pomona with a different hat, gang intervention work, when I was about 20 years old, 21. Now, I could see the work that I've done through my probation contracts and those type of things. Things have changed in Pomona significantly over the course of the last 20 years. And it's taken a long time to get to this point. I think we've improved ourselves significantly. I remember, again, downtown Pomona, it was still somewhat dangerous. A parent wouldn't want their kids to go hang out in downtown Pomona because it wasn't safe. But now it's beautiful and it's safe.
Yeah.
I don't think there was a lot of youth activities or clubs when I was growing up. And now, you can get involved in a dozen things that are positive here in Pomona. I don't necessarily see cholos anymore. I don't see the uniform of cholos walking down the street. I don't see tagging like I used to see and all the walls that would say this or that neighborhood. I don't hear very much about racial riots. Now, again, I grew up here in Pomona, so every year at Ganesha High School and sometimes Pomona High School, there was always some type of racial riot. That has decreased. So, again, a lot of the negative activities that I participated and I saw while I was in high school here, it's not seen anymore. And I'd like to think it was on the account of someone like me or someone like Joseph and some of our other people that have consistently put in work within our community to make those improvements of change. Now, again, we're going to be handing off that baton to your generation. So now the question is, by the time you're our age in your 40s, what type of changes would you like to see happening within our community?
So I'd want to first mention I'd like to see the fruits of the labor of what we're doing now already progress by the time I'm around 40, 50, you know.
So no substance abuse for minors. That's one.
Yeah, it's one.
Awesome. All right.
And better parks.
Better parks, right? Clean, safe parks where families enjoy family time.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd also like to see like a more tight-knit community where like almost everyone, everyone knows each other,
Yeah. I love going into the community and seeing Joseph and other people I know. It gives me such a feeling of not negative pride, but positive pride that I'm known in my community. That Joseph, I'm sure you feel the same way too. You go somewhere and you're known in your community for being a warrior for good, right?
Absolutely. Just establishing networks.
Yes, it feels good. And we hope that one day you will also feel good. And you're going to look back and say, wow, man, I started when I was a teenager with my mentors. And we look at these beautiful parks that we have that are safe and clean.
Yeah.
Look at, we don't have anybody overdosing, no youngsters. We haven't had one youngster overdose on drugs. And they're getting involved in healthy activities. So that would be quite a dream, huh?
Yeah, it's all about creating healthy spaces to create a healthy community. So
healthy spaces to make a healthy community. Well, I hope at least within our conversation here, as we kind of started thinking about what it would look like to have an annual youth conference that focused on leadership development. Perhaps even out of this little conversation, the seed had been planted in, and maybe one day you'll be in charge of running that conference, right? We're making an annual thing, right?
Yeah, I'm all for it, man. I'll definitely be involved in one way or another. Consider me a volunteer. Consider me a resource.
And I wouldn't necessarily just limit it to, Pomona and the Pomona Valley. Maybe other cities like maybe Long Beach, everything. All of Southern California,
That's right.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be really, really something else. But it all starts with the dream, right?
Yeah.
And a thought.
The seed has been planted.
The seed has been planted. That's right. So as we reach the top of the hour, anything else on your mind, Joseph or Dylan, that you like to discuss?
Let's see. We could discuss the conference.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So again, just to tell the community out there a little bit, Dylan and I, and Tina also, we went to a conference. We flew up there. So it was kind of cool that Tina and Dylan, it was their first time on a plane.
Yeah.
So that was a cool thing. And I think it was their first time in a hotel room all by themselves, so they were living pretty lush and extravagant, When I used to do these youth conferences, it was 10 of us in a room, and stinky farts and snoring, and again, a bunch of dudes and sleeping on the floor and on the beds. So you had it pretty easy. We went to a conference called All Children Thrive, California, that was public partners. Oh, I wish we'll figure that out. It was sponsored by Public Health Partners, I think it was.
Yeah.
And again, this is a conference of people all throughout California, not just Southern California, but all throughout California, that are working on projects within their community, addressing a number of issues from parks and green spaces to homelessness to food insecurity and things of that nature. So all throughout Southern California, youngsters and their mentors met up to talk about the good work that they have done, to get training in workshops, and to meet other people, and then of course go to the Capitol and share with our elected officials the things that we care about within our community. So can you tell us a little bit about perhaps the workshops that you participated in as a youngster, and any takeaways that you might have?
So the first workshop I participated in was our own workshop, where we got to present our project and our progress so far. And I think we did a really good job.
Yeah.
And with other workshops, I was able to learn, and we were able to talk to other people on other methods of networking and marketing towards the youth. And also, one of the workshops, I think is the Long Beach workshop, we were able to learn about problems of retaining engagement with the youth and their stay in the program. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So my answer towards that, Joseph, and I don't know if I want you to chime in. I think selling our programs, or market our programs like a job training program or an internship. I want to say that I've made a mistake of hoping that young people would gravitate towards making a little bit of money, while only offering an hour or two a month to receive this money. I said, oh man, if I was a youngster, I would love to do that. But like the money isn't the hook to this generation, it seems like. You know what I mean? I thought, how many youngsters would have loved to, 2 hours a month, maybe 3 hours a month, 1 hour a week at the most to get a nice, some nice stuff, right?
Some nice money.
So I would tailor the program to be more of a job training where you're going to expect to have, show up on time, learning those soft skills for job, showing up, taking care of your task and whatever. Experience. But again, not selling to young people as, hey, come hang out with us and we're going to give you a gift card and it's going to look good in your resume. But come hang out with us and we're going to give you an internship where you're going to get paid and learn these set of skills. What is your thought on that?
What I'm hearing and what I'm focused on with my intentions is building social entrepreneurs.
Social entrepreneurs.
And so when youth have entrepreneurship and they're able to develop themselves as a business, then they can always monetize their passion.
Yes.
And that's the best thing because there's no burnout when you love what you do.
Yeah.
And so things that our programs offer include social media development, acting, right? Marketing,
yes.
Right? Campaign work, activism, things that you can actually get paid for in a job.
Skills pay the bills, Joseph.
The skills pay the bills. And so if we can meet them where their passion is at, all of the things that they're engaging in, photography, interviewing skills. Everybody, I always hear this, Dylan, people want to be content creators. I want to go and be on YouTube, or I want to have my own podcast, or I want to have, my own TV show or a series or something. We can always monetize that, but the skills to pay those bills have to be developed first. And that's where we come in and giving them those pilot programs to say, yeah, I did it while I was in high school. I established myself as a business or something marketable, something that can be monetized throughout all of my engagements. And that's really what we try to do. One of the missteps that I've encountered that I've engaged in was not being forthright enough about the incentive of compensation. And instead of saying, incentive, letting them know that they're going to get a stipend for their work. They're going to get money that they can utilize to continue reinvesting in themselves and buying more materials, getting the items that they need in order to execute so that they can have a full-fledged program or revenue stream that they can continuously have throughout their young adulthood and into their adulthood.
Great. I like that. Yeah, that's. What do you think?
I think it's amazing because we all have to start somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
We can't just, like you said, people want to have the podcast, TV show, but not everyone has the equipment and everything. So we have to start from little, and build our way up.
Yeah.
Eventually, we'll get to the big podcast.
For sure.
And if you're listening out there and you're a parent or a high school student, please connect to somebody at this table right here or any other table around your community, because there are opportunities for young people to get some mentorship and some training because skills pay the bills. I know right now, if you want to do your little plug, do you have opportunities right now, Joseph, within your program that, for parents to hear or for transitional age youth to hear, to get involved with some of these activities? Or
Absolutely, and I appreciate you providing that space again. We have a new program just funded by Elevate Youth California, and it's a 3-year program where we're giving youth the capabilities and the capacity to establish those programs that we were talking about. So it might be acting in a reality party. It might be participating in a podcast. It might be creating social media content. We also are providing stipends for youth to do listening sessions and gain information and feedback from their peers that they could utilize to continue impact projects like Dylan is doing with the parks and in schools and on campuses and throughout the community. So that program is called Elevated Minds Youth Committee. We also have adult advocates for Elevated Minds Youth. And then we have a set of dynamic staff that are constantly investing, supporting, facilitating the passion of the youth so that they can execute. In addition to Elevated Minds, We're continuing to offer Pomona Youth Prevention Council, which is a leadership council, kind of like city council would be for a normal city entity, but it's an offshoot of that where youth can engage in leadership training, excursions, campaign activism, etc. So in addition to the public health aspect, we're definitely providing more than just an education. It's more of we're walking alongside of them as they develop into social entrepreneurs and hopefully public health entrepreneurs as well.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you for that opportunity. And so I'll put up some information, I'm guessing, on the video that for contact, but just say it out loud. What is the best way to get a hold of you to learn more about these programs?
So the best way to get in contact with me is my email. It's jmclellan@prototypes.org. Or if you want to go to our link tree, it's Proto Link Tree. And go ahead and reach out to us at any time. You can also hit us up on Instagram at Youth Prevention Proto.
All right. And I'm always interested in getting a mentee or two. So if you're a parent or a youngster and you would like to be mentored by someone like me that could teach audio and video skills, podcasting skills, mural skills, civic engagement, I always try to find money somewhere where I can help a young person by giving them some incentive money, but also hanging out with me, gathering some skills, learning some things, because skills pay the bills, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So we open it up for our community to leave some comments or to reach out to one of us if you're interested in connecting to some great programs like Prototypes or, well, my program called, SoCal Service Corps and Youth Elevate Team, where it's almost the same. Yeah, same thing. We're all about elevating youth. So if you want to be elevated youth, you come talk to one of us, and we'll make it happen, right?
Yeah.
All right. So any final thoughts, Dylan?
Also, this weekend we have this weekend. Yeah.
Oh yes.
This weekend, April 26th at Washington Park, we'll be having a park cleanup, and it's a cleanup and compost event. So bring in all your it's a cleanup of hazardous waste. So bring in all your
paints. I can bring paint.
Waste.
Hazardous waste.
Hazardous waste, yeah.
Well, I mean, like, so if I got old paint.
It's like syringes.
Syringes. Okay.
Any unwanted prescriptions that you have, expired prescriptions that you would want to dispose of properly. Don't just throw them in your toilet and flush them. Don't just throw them in the garbage and send them to the landfill. Because you dispose of them properly at the Athens.
Let's give them a public education for this moment. Now, we got to tell you, when you flush your medications down the toilet, it messes with the fish in the ocean and increases estrogen, all kinds of stuff I heard that has a very bad effect. So one of the last things you want to do is ever flush your medications down the toilet, right?
Absolutely.
And you don't want to keep them because perhaps whether it be grandchildren, nephews, nieces, children, other people can sometimes get into your medication and abuse it in a way, right?
Correct.
So one of the safest things to do is to drop off your medications at a place like this, is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. We also have a drug take back day again coming up. Did you want to elaborate on what month we usually have it in?
Yeah, October? Yeah, sorry. So the drug take back day, where you should bring in all your medications, syringes, and everything, is in October. Because that's during the month of Red Ribbon Week and the Drug Awareness Month. So. This weekend, it's for bulky items, carpet, electronic waste, broken furniture, mattresses, refrigerators, and textiles, and yard waste as well. So.
All right.
Sure. And today is a special day. It just so happens to be
Earth Day.
Earth Day.
Yeah. So a great way to give back and protect your environment and continue to invest in this precious world that we're all a part of together.
Right. Our little blue planet right here.
Yeah.
Huh? And so Earth Day, each one teach one. Out there, if you have children or even you're an adult, take the time to take off your shoes and walk on grass.
Plant a seed.
Plant a tree, hug a tree this week, because this is not Earth Day. We'll call it Earth Week. Spend some time with nature and appreciate Earth, because it's the only one we have.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me on Spotlight Pomona at the 3P Studios here in downtown Pomona Arts Colony. I really appreciate the two of you guys and the work and the effort that you put in our community. Joseph, you're a champion of a couple decades, and And Dylan over here is a rising star. So I'm very happy to have you here, and you guys keep up the good work in your community, and we'll see you out in Pomona. If you guys ever see us out in Pomona, either one of us here, please introduce yourself. Tell us if this podcast or these stories make a difference in your life, because when we hear from our community, it tells us that we're doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.